all the time. All the time, me and my team. Next slide. I will not talk about this. Some people don't want to talk about this. I will not talk about this. That's a double negative, huh? Race is an issue. 65% of black children in Cincinnati live in poverty. 65% of those, a lot of them are at 100% of the federal poverty level. At the 100% of the federal poverty level. Some of them are not eating. I see that with my kids, the ones that I'm working with. When we give them breakfast and lunch when they come to meet with me. And how do I know? Because I can see their moms taking up all the extra food, putting it in their purse and trying to hide it, and I keep telling them they don't have to hide it. It's okay. Take it home. They have other kids at home. I know that. I know that they don't have food there. It's okay to take the extra food. We buy extra food because we know that they need to take the food home. Take the food home. So, when the Poverty Collaborative started, some of you may have been involved in this. There were all these community summits. There were community conversations. They had one-on-one interviews. They did all of this work, right? To find out what is this about this poverty thing. And they said poverty is a complex system. Absolutely. Because it's not just about jobs. It's an interrelationship of concepts that are a part of a system of things that are a part of our community. It incorporates things like health and education and housing and transportation and resilience and hope and the whole notion of incarceration and violence and the drug economy. Because in my hometown of Youngstown, that was what, when the mills closed and it got really bad, the economy was the drug economy. It was the drug economy. And when they shut down the drug economy, there was no economy. That's real talk. That's real talk. We all knew it. The officials knew it. The mayors knew it. The sheriff knew it. The congressmen knew it, because they're now all in jail. That's how I know they knew it. Okay? Trafficking, some names you may know, when had to go to prison. Everybody knew it. But it was the economy. All right? Now Cincinnati's big, larger, so it didn't have to go that far. But those are the kinds of things that happen in communities. And let us not forget the cliff effect. Let us not forget the implications or the impact that the system that we built as a society has caused people to depend on. Indeed, my granddaughter, who's in college right now in Columbus, she's 25 years old, getting ready to graduate from college, hallelujah, had a baby when she was 22. She thought her life was over. I said, oh, no, it's not. Now, you've heard Grandma's story. There ain't no sense of you getting this, oh, woe is me, 27 years old, you had a baby, and you're going to keep on going to school. But here's her challenge. She needed daycare. She couldn't be a student, try to work her little part-time job, and afford daycare. Daycare is very expensive, right? So she had to quit her job so she could qualify to get the support for daycare. And she said, now, Karen, does that even make any sense here? I'm trying to work and do the right thing, but she says, I can't, if I try to do the day, if I try to keep my job and use the money to pay for daycare, then I can't afford to pay my rent. She got a very nice townhouse. She said, what am I supposed to do? I said, well, we're just going to have to help you, because you are not dropping out of school, because that was her other option. Quit school. No, not an option. But we've set up a system that says to people, look, you just got to stay poor. Yeah. You just got to stay poor, because if you do this, we can't give you any help. But we know if you do that, it's not enough for you to really do anything but stay poor. Right? So poverty is indeed a complex system, and I say it's like you put all of these things, all of these pieces in a balloon with water and start squeezing, right? You squeeze on one side, what happens? It goes up. Well, what we've done and what we've built over time is a system of safety nets. So maybe it's not really a system. Next slide. Just some facts. The economic cost of child poverty in Cincinnati is about $1 billion. one of the things that we've done is in talking and looking at what was done over the last 2 years is looking at lost output, reduced productivity, increased health costs, and crime. Just because there are people who are unable to have the coverage for their child. When you think about it from a psychosocial perspective, think about everyone being together, all facing the same sadness, all facing the same hopelessness, and not feeling that there's anything that they can do about it. After a while, just think about it in your own family. What begins to happen? You get angry, itchy, acting out behaviors. I saw on the news last night a little kid on an airplane that screamed for 8 hours. I would have probably had to hit somebody. But just think about that. Think about our neighborhoods that are living in absolute poverty. The cost is borne by the reduced well-being of children and families in poverty. And this cost is borne by the rest of society. Key drivers, next slide. 35% of head of households have no more than a high school diploma. However, the poverty rate among these households is higher than expected in Cincinnati, given this level of attainment. So what does that say about us? What does that say about how our jobs look? When I talk to the business community about this, I talk about it from the perspective of what are we doing collectively, we jobs, we education, both higher education, secondary education, as well as higher education, as well as our apprenticeship programs, etc., to work from a systematic perspective to understand what it is that's broken or needs to be re-engineered. How do we begin to change the paradigm on how we think about work, to begin to look at it from a systematic perspective so that this begins to change. We've got some rethinking to do. You know, in my day, everybody didn't have to go to college. It was split up. You know, there were kids that went to college prep courses and kids that went to the technical courses. It wasn't tech like computers back then, but you all know. And then there were kids that, you know, women primarily that did like the sewing and all those kinds of things. That's the way it was, secretarial stuff. Remember that? Some of you do. Some of you don't, I know. But those kinds of things are important. Now here's what we know. We know that we have 72 to 75,000 jobs that are going unfilled and unanswered in Greater Cincinnati right now. All are located where?
Suburbs.
In the suburbs, outside of 275. What else do we know about that?
No bus service out there.
Ain't no bus service out there. And what do we know about people who are poor? Right now. Now, right, they have no cars. Or if they have one, if one thing happens to their car, what happens? They can't go. And then what happens?
They get fired.
They get fired. Okay. Does that make any logical sense? Absolutely not. So we've been working with the employers as it relates to that. Then there's this notion of the ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences. These numbers are astonishing, and mine is a 6, just so you know. Mine is a 6. That's pretty high. And so I you know, now that I do this work, and now that I work one-on-one with kids and families, and when I'm doing that, when I have on my jeans and sweatshirts and my baseball hat, you know, I talk to them from that level and explain to them that it took me almost 60 years to begin to work through the things that I faced and dealt with when I was 5, 8, 10, and 11 years old. That stuff stays with you. I said, if my son, when he was 35, I'm a survivor of domestic abuse, and my son, when he was 35, he's going to be 45 in a few months, had nightmares, was having nightmares that I only found out about because his wife told me, about his father beating me, and him yelling and screaming about that. That stayed with him until he was 35 years old, and I convinced him he needed to get some help. These things are real. And so when we talk about working with people and helping them move on this pathway, we have to take this into consideration. Next slide. This criminal justice system and the disproportionate impact that it has on the population, we got to talk about that. We got to talk about why that is. We got to talk about it's a real thing. Listen, I've said to people, and this was before I got this job, so I was somewhat surprised sometimes when people ask me to do things after I've opened my mouth and said stuff. But when the heroin, I was on the board of Interact for Health, formerly the Greater Cincinnati Health Foundation. And when the opioid thing started happening, everyone started talking about people being sick. And they got this sickness, and the addiction was a sickness. And I sat there as long as I could. I said, I need to understand. When we had crack in the street, everybody said, lock him up. Did anybody think that maybe there was some mental illness going on with that too? Because there really was. There really was. And that mental illness was about trauma. It was about trauma in the neighborhood.